Unfortunately for America, the court isn't necessarily wrong that this is the way the framers wanted it to be.
The Supreme Court handing Trump a big win one day before Super Tuesday, unanimously ruling against Colorado's effort to kick him off the ballot.
Many states have tried this way of removing Trump from the ballot. It was considered a novel, long shot way to bump Trump out of eligibility for the White House.
Tonight, the U.S. Supreme Court dealing a final blow to states trying to ban former President Trump from the ballot. In a unanimous decision, the justices effectively leaving it up to voters to decide.
Ultimately, the United States Supreme Court disagreed. Votes for Donald Trump will count, and he is on our ballot.
George, this morning, voters are heading to the polls in 15 states as Donald Trump certainly hopes to sweep Super Tuesday and close out this Republican primary.
But House Democrats already cooking up another idea.
I am working with a number of my colleagues, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Eric Swalwell, to revive legislation that we had to set up a process by which we could determine that someone who committed insurrection is disqualified by Section 3 of the 14th Amendment.
And I don't know if Jamie Raskin has ever read the Constitution. Maybe he ought to brush up on it and find out that there is a presumption of innocence, and you have to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of your peers, none of which has ever happened to Donald Trump. Even Jack Smith, who was a deranged anti-Trump hater, even he hasn't charged Donald Trump with insurrection for a simple reason. Because Donald Trump didn't commit insurrection. That's why. They would have charged him if they thought they could. So the whole thing is nonsense, but it really does show the depravity, the moral depravity of these people who honestly think that they're just a little better than the rest of us.
Unfortunately for America, the framers wanted freedom of the press, and we have CNN. Now, the press today collectively realized Americans would have to vote to save democracy. The Democrats will have to persuade voters instead of 9 judges, and they admitted this with a heavy heart.
It will be up to the American voters to save our democracy in November.
Yes, it means we got to beat them at the ballot box, and that may motivate our base.
You can't save a people from themselves. If they're determined to reelect him after he organized that insurrection, arguably our first coup d'etat, then there's nothing to stop the people from doing that.
Larry's mad that nothing can stop Americans from voting. They're admitting they don't actually like the democracy that they say they need saving. Now, some TV lawyers pretend it was the right decision all along, and they knew it was going to be 9-0.
And I actually think it was the right decision to make, because it would have, if Colorado had been allowed to do that, we'd have this chaotic sort of process where you have 50 states and some are choosing to put him on the ballot and some are choosing not to put him on the ballot.
But this wasn't what Sonny Hostin said months ago about the Colorado case.
The point is the Constitution, and there is a Constitution and there's precedent, and he needs to be taken out by the Constitution.
Other liberals threw a tantrum worse than Jesse Jr. Keith Olbermann says, quote, the Supreme Court has betrayed democracy. Its members, including Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor, have proved themselves inept at reading comprehension. And collectively, the court has shown itself to be corrupt and illegitimate. It must be dissolved. The women on the court can't read, so dissolve it, says Keith Olbermann, unaware that it happens to be Women's History Month. And someone told Olbermann to cry more, and he wrote back, quote, those aren't tears, fascist. They're urine. I'm sure you enjoy being bathed in it. Olbermann claimed he's urinated on his own face, and we hope that he gets the help that he needs. Regardless of what Olbermann's doing in the privacy of his own home, the media has officially declared the Democrats, now is the time to start freaking out.
If it's an existential threat, let's start acting like it's an existential threat. So stop the bedwetting, but maybe a little bit of freak out wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Politico says behind the scenes, this has the feel of a slow motion car crash. The level of freak out remains high, as Democrats are telling each other, if you're not a bedwetter now, you're not paying attention. They were passing out Quaaludes on the Upper West Side after the Sunday New York Times edition landed on the stoops. The latest Time poll, Trump's ahead by 5 points. A gaping advantage by a Republican nationally in a mainstream media poll. The most damning finding, 10% of Americans who voted for Biden in 2020 now say they're switching their votes to Trump. That means over 8 million Biden voters have become Trump voters. which would give Trump the popular vote. The first time a Republican's done that in 20 years. Joe Biden's approval rating sinking even lower to just 36%, and around 3/4 of the country agreeing he's too old to be an effective leader. Half of Democrats don't even want Biden to be their nominee. And President Trump's taking advantage, picking up large amounts of support from women, Hispanics, blacks, young Americans, basically everyone besides college professors and ladies with purple hair. The left can't process how horrible of a president Joe Biden is and the toll he's taking on their party and, more importantly, the country. So they're lashing out in uncoordinated fashion, justifying and excusing his performance and giving a variety of wild advice.
Instead of trying to refute all the too old to be president slams, Joe must embrace them. Stop with the I'm sharper than ever. Nobody's buying that. Don't try to deny the age thing. Lean into it. Lean in. Lean in like you're eating soup. Just admit it. Say, yes, I'm bad with names, and I walk like a toddler with a full diaper. Be yourself. And Joe, yourself is old. That's who you are. Old. You once fell down the stairs at the Underground Railroad. You're so old, your bad kid with a drug problem is 54.